السلام عليكم. Welcome back to another episode of Quran in English. My name is Ahmed and I'm happy to continue through chapter 12 of Surah Yusuf. And it's very exciting, so I kind of want to jump straight in. But as always, we must always explain that I'm not an Arabic scholar nor a Quranic scholar. I have not studied the Arabic language, nor have I studied the Quran. In fact, for a lot of the Quran, this is my first read through for it, not the specific chapter, but in general. And I'm sharing my educational journey with you in the hopes that you might learn with me. But if you have a different perspective on something, please feel free to drop a comment. The more that we exchange, the more that we talk, the more that we think, the better that this experience will be. And yes, it's a very, very exciting chapter, and the drama continues. It's one of the most interesting stories for me because it's so action-packed. It's so easy to follow, even if you don't follow the Quran that easily. But as usual, I always begin with أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم, and off we go.
وقال نسوة في المدينة امرأة العزيز تراود فتاها عن نفسه قد شغفها حبا إنا لنراها في ضلال مبين.
Okay, so last we left off, the wife of the man that took in Yusuf, into their homes, tried to seduce him, and then she ripped his shirt from behind, and so it was obvious that she seduced him, not he tried to take advantage of her. And then, following that little engagement and story, news spread in the small town, and the women of the town in the city said that the wife of Al-Aziz is like the mighty, it could be the chief, it's someone that's like of high stature. She's seeking to seduce her slave boy, the one that they kind of adopted / took into their home, away from himself. It's similar terms, تراوده عن نفسه, which means to seduce him against himself, to seduce him without his consent, so to speak. Maybe I'm not saying this correct, but it's تراوده عن نفسه, to seduce him from himself. And so the women started talking, saying that indeed love has impassioned her. He has impassioned her with love. He's bewitched her. She's fallen for him. She's in love with him. Indeed, we surely see her in an error that is clear. So all the ladies of the city were like, "Ooh, she done lost the plot. She's clearly confused. Poor girl." And then she's like, "Okay, hang on a second."
فلما سمعت بمكرهن أرسلت إليهن وأعتدت لهن متكأ وآتت كل واحدة منهن سكينا وقالت اخرج عليهن فلما رأينه أكبرنه وقطعن أيديهن وقلن حاش لله ما هذا بشرا إن هذا إلا ملك كريم.
Okay, this is a very interesting story. It says, so when she heard about their scheming and their back-talking from behind her and saying that she's surely doomed, she's in love with the slave boy. It wasn't a slave boy, she was in love with the boy that was at her house. The translation of the previous... Anyway, she was in love with the boy that's not her husband. When she heard about their scheming, she sent for them, and she prepared for them a banquet. And she gave each one of them a knife. And the idea is that she told them to all cut an apple or fruit or something, use the knife. And then as they were using the knife, she said, come out before them. So Yusuf, when they saw him, they greatly admired him, and they were cutting, and then they cut their own hands. They cut their own hands from his beauty. And they said, God forbid, what is this? This is not a man. This is indeed but an angel that is noble, an angel that is above it. So the ladies all cut their hand from how beautiful he was, which is kind of like, I don't know if it was like physical beauty or if it was just his stature. You know, sometimes when someone is such a grand character that he has an aura about him. But either way, they were enamored and they cut their own hands. So this was her plan. Her plan was to make all the women that were talking stuff about him realize why she fell under the spell, and that they all fell under the same spell, which is a crazy plot, but it works.
قالت فذلكن الذي لمتنني فيه ولقد راودته عن نفسه فاستعصم ولئن لم يفعل ما آمره ليسجنن وليكون من الصاغرين.
Now this is where I get to the first confusing part of the order of events. Not from this verse, but from the next verse. But anyway, she said, so that's the one that you blame me about. You blame me about falling in love with this man, yet you all cut your arms. You just met him, so you know it. And then she admits, she said, certainly I sought to seduce him from himself, but he saved himself. And then here's where my confusion begins. And if he does not do what I order him to do, then surely he will be imprisoned, and certainly he will be of the ones who are disgraced. He will be very small in stature. So she says, if he doesn't do what I say, he's going to be imprisoned and he'll be disgraced. Which is confusing to me because of what the next verse is.
قال رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه وإلا تصرف عني كيدهن أصب إليهن وأكن من الجاهلين.
Okay, I understand it a lot better now. I just didn't understand it on the first read through. So Joseph was physically there when all of this happened, right? When he came out and then they cut his hands, and then she said, you know, if he doesn't do what I say, I'm going to prison him. And then here we see a moment where Yusuf is talking to God. Yeah, I should say Yusuf because, I mean, this is the Quran. It is Arabic. But I'm saying Joseph just because I'm translating it to English. I don't know. So Yusuf says, he said, my Lord, the prison is dearer to me than what they invite me to it. And I think the invite me to it is where I was confused, because she says, if he doesn't do what I say, he's going to go to prison. And so him hearing this, he says to God that I'd rather go to prison than do what she says. So it makes perfect sense. I don't know why I struggled with it. And unless you turn away from me their plot, so Yusuf continues praying, unless you save me from their plot, as in put me in prison, I might incline towards them, and I will be among the ignorant. So he knows that doing what they're saying is bad, and he would rather be in prison than do what they say.
فاستجاب له ربه فصرف عنه كيدهن إنه هو السميع العليم ثم
Sorry. Don't do this to me. Okay, we're good. So it's interesting that he prayed to God asking to be imprisoned so that he doesn't fall for their plot, doesn't fall for their seduction, doesn't fall for them. And we do kind of see this even in the previous version, in the previous verses. He was prone to falling for them. And we don't see it in this specific section, but in the first part of the next section. I'm going to cover it a little bit, give you a sneak peek of next week. Wednesday's episode, because it's very interesting. But the theme is that even as good as he was, he has temptation within him, and he can fall for it. And he prayed to be imprisoned, And here we see that فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبَّهُ responded for him his God, but for me it responded. Yeah, so God responded to him, and so he turned away from their plot. And I'm trying to think of the Rabbahu is oftenly referred to as God, but it could be the master of the house. I was just thinking about it. Which would make sense, actually. Okay, you're starting to annoy me. The reason why I say it could be the man of the house, the lord of the house, the head of the house, is aka her husband. Does that make sense? Nah, if he's saying, my lord, the prison is more dear to me than what they invite me to, unless you turn away from me from their plot, and I become one of the ignorant. Yeah, this has to be God, right? It's not the master of the house. And then God responded to him, and he turned away from their plot, and indeed he's all hearing and all knowing. Obviously it's not the master of the house. This is descriptions of God. Sorry, it's late at night. I'm not used to recording episodes like this. This is God. Let's not get confused. I'll explain to you a bit later why it was an issue. Anyway, so God responded, and indeed God is all hearing and all wise.
ثم بدا لهم من بعد ما رأوا الآيات ليسجننه حتى حين.
It's definitely God, because what happens next is a bit interesting. Then it appeared to them from after what they saw from signs that they should imprison him until a time. Now here it translates to saying proofs of his innocence, which I kind of understand, that despite them seeing proofs of his innocence, it appeared to them that they should imprison him. But the way that I read it, and it's pretty straightforward, then it appeared to them after what they had seen from proofs, from signs, that they should imprison him until a time. So they saw some false evidence, I think. Not that they saw proofs of his innocence and then they decided that he should be imprisoned for a while. They saw fake. I think they just saw signs that weren't really there. It was made appear to them, which means that they were, tricked into thinking that they should imprison him until a time. So they in a long story short, they imprisoned him.
ودخل معه السجن فتيان قال أحدهما إني أراني أعصر خمرا وقال الآخر إني أراني أحمل فوق رأسي خبزا تأكل الطير منه نبئنا بتأويله إنا نراك من المحسنين.
Okay, and entered with him into the prison were two young men. So one of them said, indeed, I see myself pressing wine. And the other said, indeed, I see myself carrying over my head bread that birds are eating from it. Can you inform us of its interpretation? Indeed, we see you among the good doers. And here is not like doing good as in like doing good things, but being good at what you do. Like we see you capable, we see you good at this. And they said, in other words, they kind of had this impression of him that he would know what he's doing. And the next verse kind of explained to us that while the previous verses have kind of indicated that it's the interpretation of dreams, and he is about to interpret their dreams. Actually, yeah. Here's an interesting point. It doesn't say dreams. It just says one of them said that I see myself pressing wine, and the other said I see myself carrying over my head a bread that we're eating the birds from it. It makes sense that they're dreams, but it doesn't say that they're dreams. Inform us of its interpretation. Indeed, we see you as one of the good doers. Huh. And then the next verse is also very interesting.
قال لا يأتيكما طعام ترزقانه إلا نبأتكما بتأويله قبل أن يأتيكما ذلكما مما علمني ربي إني تركت ملة قوم لا يؤمنون بالله وهم بالآخرة هم كافرون.
Okay. His response is also strange because he says, no food comes to the both of you that you are provided with, except that I inform you of its interpretation before it comes to the both of you. Which is a wild statement. Because here they translate it to, I can tell you what kind of meal you were served before you receive it. Is not correct. It says, no food comes to the both of you that you are provided with, except I will inform both of you of its interpretation before it comes to the both of you. So before food comes to the both of you. So it's not about the dreams that they told him, assuming that they're dreams. He's telling them, I explain something to you before you get it. See, it's interesting to me, because we're talking about the interpretation of dreams, but what does that have to do with food and food that they are provided with? Except that he has informed both of them of its interpretation before that it comes to you. And then he says, that is what my Lord has taught me. Indeed, I abandoned a community, a faith of people that do not believe in God, and they are in the hereafter in it disbelievers. Which I find interesting because also the women said God. Right? Yeah. They said, God forbid. Hasha Allahi, hasha lillahi. Which I don't know if it's an expression, but why would they say God forbid if they don't believe in God? But it's just that he tells them that no food comes to you before, except that I explain to you what it is before it comes. That's not giving me just interpretation of dreams. That's giving me foresight. That's giving me being able to predict things that are yet to happen. Dreams being one of them, but it seems that he has an interpretation of what is coming. And it comes, I think, from his wisdom and knowledge that was described in the previous chapter. And the main expression that was shared was interpretation of... I want to open it from the beginning. Yusuf. Interpretation of... what was it? Narratives? That's what the translation was. ta'wil al-ahadith, the interpretation of narratives. I don't think it's about dreams. I think he's able to explain situations, also dreams. Wait, actually, let's hold this thought for a second, because another dream comes down the line, and I want to see if they mention dreams specifically. But also, he does explain to them what these two dreams are. But let's continue for now.
واتبعت ملة آبائي إبراهيم وإسحاق ويعقوب ما كان لنا أن نشرك بالله من شيء ذلك من فضل الله علينا وعلى الناس ولكن أكثر الناس لا يشكرون.
Yeah, so why make do? Yeah, so it starts with him saying that that's what God taught me, and indeed I abandoned the religion of the people that don't believe in God, or the day after, and they are disbelievers. And then he says, okay, I abandoned their faith, but I follow the faith, the religion of my forefathers, Abraham, Ishaq, and Yaqub, which again makes me feel like Yaqub, Jacob, is not his father, but it feels like it's someone that is much farther away. But there are forefathers. I mean, he is a descendant of Jacob. I just don't feel like he's his son, you know? But he follows the religion of forefathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And it was not for us that we associate with God in anything. There's only one God. That is from the grace of God upon us and upon mankind. But most people are not grateful. That's interesting, because it says it's from the grace of God that we don't associate anyone other than God. Huh. And this kind of does tie into the whole concept. I know I mentioned the topic of original sin before, and we've had a bit of a discussion with Mr. Matter on... I want to say it's Mr. Matar, but I'm not sure. It might be Mr. Matter on the previous YouTube channel. But time and time again, the Quran has mentioned that only through the grace of God and only through the mercy of God do we find faith and do we believe. And here it's kind of saying the same thing. It is only from the grace of God upon us and upon mankind. But most of mankind are not grateful. So even those that do believe in only one God aren't grateful to God for believing in one God. Okay. I'm not going to hurt my head too much. It's a bit late.
يا صاحبي السجن أأرباب متفرقون خير أم الله الواحد القهار.
What I find interesting is that they asked him, what do let's call them dreams for the sake of it, what do the dreams mean? And then he goes into preaching, which is very interesting, because once they asked him for something, then he could preach. He can't preach unless they ask. That's interesting. I added that he can't preach unless they ask on the side note. That's for me. But he apparently preached. Like, they asked him something, and he's telling them, I follow God, and there's only one God. And he says, my two companions of the prison are multiple gods. That are separate better, or one God that is one and irresistible and supreme and unconquerable. So he's giving them the general preaching of what all the messengers preach. There's one God, you should only worship him.
ما تعبدون من دونه إلا أسماء سميتموها أنتم وآباؤكم لكم ما أنزل الله بها من سلطان إن الحكم إلا لله أمر ألا تعبدوا إلا إياه ذلك الدين القيم ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون.
Again, he's continuing preaching, not answering their question, not telling them what their dreams meant, but he's saying, what you worship from besides him are except names that you have named, you and your forefathers, and God did not send down in it any authority. God didn't say that those are real. God didn't say that those are gods. Indeed, in al-hukmu illa lillah. Says indeed the command is except for God, but I think it also can mean the decision. It could also mean the wisdom, but I think it's because he didn't send down an authority, and it's God who decides, is what they're trying to say. Inna al-hukma lillah. He has commanded that you do not worship except for him alone. That is the religion that is right, but most of men do not know. So he's giving the standard God preach, which I think is very interesting.
يا صاحبي السجن أما أحدكما فيسقي ربه خمرا وأما الآخر فيصلب فتأكل الطير من رأسه قضي الأمر الذي فيه تستفتيان.
And then at the end of the standard preach, the standard, there's only one God, you should only worship him, God didn't send out anything, believe in him. He says, oh, my two companions in the prison, as for one of you, then he will give his master wine, and Rabbahu is the same word for God, and the same word, it's the word for Lord. He will give his Lord, his master, wine. And as for the other, he will be crucified, so a bird will eat from his head. The one who said, birds are eating from the bread in my head. He's going to be crucified and hung, and the birds are going to eat from his head, which is kind of, I guess they're vultures, I guess. It has been decreed the matter about which you both inquire. So they asked them about these visions, these dreams. Let's call them dreams for now. And he gave them the full. He knew they were listening, so he gave them the full. Speech. And then he explained to them their dreams. One will pour wine and be free, and one will be crucified.
وقال للذي ظن أنه ناج منهما اذكرني عند ربك فأنساه الشيطان ذكر ربه فلبث في السجن بضع سنين.
And the drama continues. And so Yusuf said to the one who thought that he's going to be saved, so the one who's going to be pouring wine, the one who's going to be saved from them, Yusuf said, mention me to your master, to your Lord. But the devil made him forget mentioning his master, so he remained in prison for several years. Now, this is very interesting because, look, it ends up in a happy story. But it's clear that the devil making somebody forget benefits Yusuf down the line. And he suffers for a few more years in prison, but the reward is almost worth it because of the devil's influence, which is kind of an interesting relationship that the devil has with all of us. Yes, the devil tempts us and makes us fail and makes us fall, but in the end, God's will always prevails through the devil's temptation. And sometimes the devil does things to hurt us that eventually strengthen us and get us to where we need to be, which is a very interesting duality and relationship between the devil and God's plan. The devil is also a part of God's plan, essentially.
وقال الملك إني أرى 7 بقرات سمان يأكلهن 7 عجاف و7 سنبلات خضر وأخر يابسات يا أيها الملأ أفتوني في رؤياي إن كنتم للرؤيا تعبرون.
Okay, yeah, so he says them, he calls them visions. He doesn't call them dreams. Which I find very interesting, because the whole time we talk about them as dreams. But anyway, let's see what it says. And the king said, indeed, I have seen 7 cows that are fat, that are being eaten by 7 lean ones, 7 skinny cows that are not fat, and 7 ears of corn that are green, and the others, and 7 others that are dry, and the others that are dry. Chiefs, he calls to his chiefs. So the king says to his chiefs, explain to me about my vision, if you can interpret visions. And they've all said dreams and translations, and I've heard the story a million times about dreams. I don't think they're dreams. There is a word for dreams in Arabic, hulm, but this is ru'ya. Ru'ya is vision, and it feels something different. It doesn't feel like dreams, but that's just my own perspective. And also, the word dreams is never mentioned. I'm sure the word for dreams existed at the time of the Quran. And if the Quran wanted to say dreams, it would have said dreams, but it said visions. Ru'ya, which most people translate to dreams because that's the closest thing that we can understand, you know? Because who has visions? Well, apparently the king.
قالوا أضغاث أحلام وما نحن بتأويل الأحلام بعالمين.
Oh, so now they say dreams. They said confused dreams, and we are not of the interpretation of dreams learned. So now, see, ahlam is the word. I said we gotta keep holding on to it. Is it dreams? Is it not dreams? It's probably dreams. Dreams are visions. Oh. I should always read Quran at 11 p.m. at night. Sorry, there's a dramatic translation as we're going along. So they said they're confusing dreams, and we are not able to interpret the dreams. So then what happens?
وقال الذي نجا منهما وادكر بعد أمة أنا أنبئكم بتأويله فأرسلون.
And again, another part that confuses me. But said the one who was saved from the two that was mentioned, Yusuf saved. One that Yusuf told that he was going to be saved. The one he was supposed to save, he was supposed to mention Yusuf to his Lord, but he didn't mention his Lord. He didn't mention Yusuf, and Yusuf stayed in prison for a couple more years. So, yeah, the one who was saved said, "Oh, I remember." After a period. And then here's where it gets confusing, because he says, "I will inform you of its interpretation, so send forth to me." And here they translated, I will tell you its interpretation, so send me forth to Joseph. Which I don't think makes a lot of sense, because why would he tell them the interpretation rather than Joseph tell them the interpretation? Yusuf. But let's see what it says.
يوسف أيها الصديق أفتنا أفتنا في 7 بقرات سمان يأكلهن 7 عجاف و7 سنبلات خضر وأخر يابسات لعلي أرجع إلى الناس لعلهم يعلمون.
So the guy who was saved goes to Joseph, and says, Yusuf, truthful one, explain to us about the 7 cows that are fat, that are being eaten by 7 lean ones, and then the 7 ears of corn that are green, and the others that are dry, so that I may return to the people, so that they may know. So he's asking Yusuf to interpret the dreams.
قال تزرعون 7 سنين دأبا فما حصدتم فذروه في سنبله إلا قليلا مما تأكلون.
Okay, so he said, you will sow 7 years Da'ban, I think consecutive makes sense. 7 years in a row, you will sow for 7 years. You will plant, you will sow, you will plant, you will sow. You'll have 7 years of successful harvest. So that which you reap, you will reap for 7 years. So leave it in its ears. In other words, store it, don't eat it, except for a little from what you eat. So here he's telling them for 7 years you're going to collect things, store a lot of it, but eat very little. Why? We'll see.
ثم يأتي من بعد ذلك 7 شداد يأكلن ما قدمتم لهن إلا قليلا مما تحصنون.
And then after those 7 years, after those will come 7 years that are hard, where you will consume what you have prepared in advance for them, except for a little of what you will store. So it's the opposite. First 7 years, you will eat a little bit and store a lot. Next 7 years, you will eat what you stored and store a little, because you don't have that much in store. It's just the 7 hard years. 7 prosperous years to 7 hard years.
ثم يأتي من بعد ذلك عام فيه يغاث الناس وفيه يعصرون.
This one confuses me a little bit, but it says, then it will come from after that a year in it that will give abundant rain, that people in it will press. So they say olive and wild, but they'll get so much rain that they'll be prosperous, and they'll press olives, they'll press vines. So he explained the dreams. That's what it is. 7 prosperous years. Hey, Paulie. 7 prosperous years to 7 hard years, and then a year of gratuitous rain.
وقال الملك ائتوني به فلما جاءه الرسول قال ارجع إلى ربك فاسأله ما بال النسوة اللاتي قطعن أيديهن إن ربي بكيدهن عليم.
Okay. So after the chief had heard the interpretation of dreams, he's like, okay, well, who... Obviously, you went to go see somebody and he interpreted it, and then you came back and you told us what the interpretation is. So bring me this boy that interpreted this dream. Oh, he said, the king, bring him to me. So, but when came to him the messenger, so the messenger is Yusuf said, return to your master? What? He says, return to your master, your lord. So ask him, what about the case of the women that cut their hands? If the king had said, bring him to me, is the messenger saying to the king, go to your master, to your lord? Why would Joseph say this to the king? Go back to your lord and ask him about the women that used to cut their hands. Indeed, my lord is of their plot all-knowing. We need more words. ربي بكيدهن العليم. I don't know why he's saying your lord, because he said my brain is not braiding. Yeah, here there's thing Joseph said, go back to your master and ask him about the case of the women who cut their hands. Surely my lord has full knowledge. My lord makes sense. Your master doesn't. Why would he tell the king your master? Unless it's like a sarcastic way of saying your lord, as in one of your lords, as in one of your people, one of your chiefs, one of your lords. Go back to your lord, and indeed my lord is of their plot all-knowing. Either way, he's telling him to go back to the house that essentially imprisoned Yusuf.
قال ما خطبكن إذ راوتن يوسف عن نفسه قلن حاش لله ما علمنا عليه من سوء قالت امرأة العزيز الآن حصحص الحق أنا راودته عن نفسه وإنه لمن الصادقين.
Okay, so here it says the king asked, which I'm getting a little confused, but somebody asked, somebody said, what was your affair if you sought to seduce Yusuf from himself? What is the story about you sought to seduce Yusuf from himself? So they said, and when we understand this, they as the women who cut their arms, they said, God forbid, which again, I don't know why they're referring to God if they're non-believers. But there's a lot of people that refer to God that are non-believers, so let's not get confused. He says, we did not know about him from any evil. We don't know anything negative about him. We don't know anything. We don't know anything at all. The women denied the knowledge that they know. However, the wife of Aziz, of the chief, of the man, said, now manifests the truth. I sought to seduce him from himself, and indeed he is surely of the truthful. Which I don't understand why she said this. I don't understand why she decided to tell the truth now. I don't understand. The only thing that I seem to be gaining from this is that sometimes the people that do wrong at first can do right at the right time, and the reward is so much more grand. That's interesting. I think I needed to hear that lesson today. Those who do wrong at first can do right later, and when they do right later, it's worth so much more. Huh.
ذلك ليعلم أني لم أخنه بالغيب وأن الله لا يهدي كيد الخائنين.
Yeah, and she shows her faith. She says, that is so that he may know that I did not betray him in secret, and that God does not guide the plan of the betrayers. And this is what she's saying. She's saying that God doesn't reward the plan of the betrayers. And that's kind of also the lesson, is that just because someone is evil, someone didn't believe before, doesn't mean that they don't believe later. And she shows great faith, and we see a transformation in her, which is very interesting and very beautiful. Now, normally I end at the end of the section, but I kind of wanna highlight what's coming in the next episode, which is, and I do not absolve وما أبرئ نفسي, I do not absolve myself, she says. Indeed, the soul is a certain enjoyer of evil, except that which bestows mercy upon my Lord. Indeed, God is oft forgiving and most merciful. She says that I do not seem to free myself from blame, for indeed the soul is ever inclined to evil, which again ties back to the concept of original sin. I know we've had the argument, Mr. Matar, but it seems to be that the soul enjoys evil except that which God bestows his mercy. Only through God's mercy do we clarify the soul. And I fought this idea when I learned it from the Christians, the idea of original sin. I didn't like it because it wasn't my idea, but the more that I read the Quran, the more that it makes sense. Interesting. I feel like I need to study the Bible while I'm studying the Quran, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, I learned a lot about today. I'm very grateful for this Quran. There's so much wisdom in it, and it makes me accept things that I was struggling to accept, like good people doing bad things. And the truth is, they will do what's right at the right time, if they're good. And you never know when someone is going to believe and become good. Sadaq Allahu al-Ali al-Azim, we always end with. And thank you for watching, and I appreciate you, and I will catch you guys not tomorrow. Tomorrow is the hottest day in the Netherlands, so I am probably going to be not in good shape. Probably come back on Wednesday. Anyway, until then, ma salame. Love you. Bye.